Why, hello, everyone, and welcome to Passionate People and Preposterous Peeves. I'm your host, Ike, and I'm here with Captain Coco. Say hello, Coco.
Hello.
So, I've known you for quite some time, but so the other folks out there at home and in audio land get to know you better, I'm going to ask you some questions. You ready?
Let's do it.
All right. What's your favorite dad or bad joke?
So it's a bit of a long joke, but it's a golf joke.
I'm game for it.
So
Ooh.
so Jesus and Moses are out golfing, and they come to the water trap. And you can golf around it on the fairway to get to the green. It's a par 5. Or if you're really good, you can drive the ball straight over the pond and turn it into maybe a 3-stroke. So Jesus lines up and says, Moses, I'm going to hit this ball over that lake just like I'm Tiger Woods. And he takes a swing, and it falls right into the lake. And he says, Moses, go get my ball. Moses is pissed off, obviously, but it's the Messiah. What's he going to do? So he swims out. He gets soaking wet. He gets the ball, brings it back. Jesus says, that was just a warm-up. I'm going to hit this over that lake just like I'm Tiger Woods. Hits it again, lands in the lake. He says, Moses, go get my ball. He does this like 2 or 3 times, and when he does it again, Moses is like, you know what? Get your own damn ball, Jesus. Jesus is like, whoa, what got you so messed up? But he's like, okay. So he goes out, but of course he's Jesus, so he doesn't swim out. He walks on the water out to go get the ball. And this has been going on for so long that there's a group of golfers behind them that are all getting pissed off because they want their turn. And they see Jesus walking on the water and they go, who the fuck does that guy think he is? Jesus fucking Christ? And Moses turns around and snaps, no, he thinks he's fucking Tiger Woods.
Long-winded, but well worth it. So, now that we know your taste in hilarity, when channel surfing, what movie will you never skip?
Oh my God. John Wick.
Coming out with the hard hitters right away.
John Wick. I would never skip John Wick. I got drunk in a bathtub in Vegas watching John Wick instead of gambling because it came on.
Sounds like you made the correct decision. So, what was your favorite book growing up that you believe should be turned into a movie?
I really liked the series of Unfortunate Events, and they did make a movie, but only of like the first 3 books. And I thought it was decent, but they never continued.
Did you see the Netflix series?
I am unaware that there was a Netflix series, so I guess they did continue.
I believe it was a different company, but yeah, I think each season was a book of its own.
Oh,
And I
damn.
think it was Neil Patrick Harris that played Olaf, as opposed to Jim Carrey.
Gotcha.
So different kind of deranged uncle. But yeah, give it a look out there, you people at home as well. Pretty darn good, if I do say so myself. Having not read the books, of course.
Yeah.
So what's your favorite meal on a rainy day?
On a rainy day? I don't know if I have a favorite meal. I guess pizza. Like, order in some pizza.
You can't go wrong with the za. Is there a restaurant that you think is the most overrated?
I don't.
By the general public.
Chipotle is pretty fucking overrated. Like, Chipotle's good, but it's not that fucking good.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially, I mean, you've spent the last couple of years before where you are now living in, California, where there's plenty of great taqueria, and there are way too many people that continually go back to the Chipotle.
Yeah, people would rather go to Chipotle than go to like a taco truck.
It's a big fail there. The dude cannot abide with this. If you could guarantee one of your dreams would come true, which one would it be?
Man, I don't know. I guess so. I have a dream to be like not crazy rich, but wealthy enough that I wouldn't have to work anymore, so that I could pursue whatever I wanted to. So probably that one.
Winning the lottery, basically.
I mean, winning the lottery could be
Not like not the Mega Millions, but like a nice little lotto spike.
I mean, that would be one way to get there. It's not in the cards though. I don't think I'm that lucky.
If you could work any of the jobs you've done over the course of your life, which one would it be?
I'd go back to being
Past or present?
I'd go back to being a mortar platoon commander. That shit was dope.
What about it did you like so much?
So for some context, I'm a Marine officer, but being a platoon commander in a mortar platoon gives you a lot of autonomy and trust from your boss. And so, it's kind of like you have your own unit, you have your own job to do, and people leave you and trust you to do it. And it's pretty cool and empowering to have that kind of position.
I'll bet. So, what do you regret not having done before you graduated high school?
Um, I don't know if I really regret it, but I didn't actually drink until I was in college, and I wish I had maybe had some sort of exposure to alcohol before turning 21.
Why is that? Is it because of like the kind of availability thereafter, and so like it was like hard to rein it in, or just because
Yeah,
it all
like
kind of came so suddenly?
like the first time I ever tried alcohol, I got so smashed I couldn't walk straight and fucking lost track of the night and then was hungover the next day. And like if I was in for example, my dad now has a very different relationship with alcohol than he did when I was growing up. And so, like, when my younger sister came up, he, in moderation, introduced her to it. And so she never went through that same experience. I wish I had gotten some sort of like responsible introduction to alcohol instead of being told it's not for you until you're 21. And then by the time I'm 21, I'm by myself with no mature voice to say, maybe don't drink an entire pitcher of beer by yourself.
You wish you had slowly eased into the pool as opposed to jumping off the diving board into the deep end, basically.
Sure. But I guess a lot of people have the same experience and usually figure it out, so I don't know. So it's not like a huge regret, but it would have been, I don't know.
Yeah, it's something that you would have preferred to happen. Totally. It sounds like you've lived a pretty good life if that is your regret, but also, I mean, that totally makes sense. What are you bad at that you'd like to be better at?
Um, I guess two things are coming to my head right now. One, I'm really bad at drawing, and I'd like to be good at it. I'd like to be able to like sketch things. Um, I also, I think I'm not a very good singer, and I'd like to be a good singer. Some people tell me that I'm decent, but I think they're just being nice. But that might just be me being self-critical. I don't know.
Yeah, that's definitely one of those hard things to judge because the way we hear ourselves, unless you record it and like play it back, is so different than the way we sound to other people. So it is like really hard to tell. Like for me, my voice sounds like when I'm singing to myself, it sounds great, but then when I listen to it on playback, it sounds like crap. So that it might hopefully it's the inverse for you, where it kind of sounds weird to you, but to everybody else it sounds great. But yeah, that is definitely one of those harder things to tell without technology and kind of spending time.
Yeah,
But I have good news for you. After I recently heard a study, and apparently that's one of those things that everybody apparently can do, according to like music coaches and like musicians that have spent time studying and teaching, is that is a skill that everybody can possess.
singing
Is
well.
like singing well is something that can be taught to anyone. There isn't like a like natural talent that obviously there are people that are like a cut above, but like reaching the bar of acceptable good singing voice that would do well in a choir, or if they were playing at an open mic would receive decent aplomb. That's a thing that just exists given like time. So if that's something that you want, it is very achievable.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be Ed Sheeran here.
I'm not saying beat Ed Sheeran, but you can totally be Nickelback if you want to.
Hell yeah.
So let's all go look at that Frodo graph together. What are you terrible at and have no problem with?
You know, sometimes it causes me problems, but I'm terrible at keeping my mouth shut. A lot of my friends know this. I like to chime in, and for me, talking is thinking. And I don't really have
Mm.
a problem with that. Like it works for me. And sometimes it's like sometimes it creates problems, but I don't be like, man, I wish I wasn't like this. I just accept it as a fact of the way I am, but it's not like, yeah, I've got no problem with it. I sometimes I learn to keep my mouth shut because it's appropriate, but it doesn't like bother me.
Preaching to the choir. Is there something that you're proud of but never have the opportunity to brag about and would like to?
I don't know, not really. Um, I'm proud of a lot of things, I guess, but like I don't. I don't feel a need to necessarily brag about them.
Okay, brag might be the wrong choice of word, but just kind of talk about or get to, show your expertise or, excelling qualities in those areas.
So I'm currently in a program where I study the Arabic language so that I could live in a Middle Eastern country. I'm living in Oman, which most people probably don't know where Oman is, but it's on the southeast corner of the Arab Peninsula. And so, studying Arabic before I came here, I only had a year's worth of time to study it. And my Arabic is far from perfect. Let me be perfectly clear here. Like, it's still got a long way to go. Learning a language is a long-term commitment. But
Mhm.
the amount of Arabic that I was able to learn in a year, I became like, I would say conversationally fluent. I have a good grasp of the grammar, a good grasp of the flow, very good pronunciation, decent listening skills, a wide array of vocabulary that I have. There's a lot of vocabulary that I don't have, but I am pretty proud of how much I was able to accomplish in that short time learning the language. And I think it speaks a little bit to, kind of going back to what you asked previously, I'm really a talker, and so
Mhm.
learning a foreign language is like in my wheelhouse. What does this guy like to do? Oh, he loves to talk. Well, let's teach him how to talk more, but differently. Like, perfect.
Nailed it.
Yeah, I'll talk all fucking day. So I think it fit into my kind of personality to learn to speak a foreign language, but nonetheless, I'm proud of it. Like, I think it's cool that I was able to do as much as I did.
Totally. Yeah, that's really awesome and impressive. So, what's the most bizarre fact you know for certain to be true?
The most bizarre fact that I know for certain to be true.
Bizarre might be a bit of a misleading word choice there, but what I mean is like a fact that very few other people you would believe to know. So like if you brought it up as like a if you formulated your question your fact as a question at a pub quiz, very few people would get it correct. Would like know that it was true as opposed to false.
Man, I'm like kind of stumped here. I guess nothing's really popping in my head right now. Maybe I know what the deepest lake on Earth is something that's jumping
Uh,
into my head.
yeah, what is that?
But I think a lot of people know that. It's Lake Baikal in Russia. I don't know
Yeah,
what it's
I don't think a lot of people know that, but
I don't know what it's made of.
I
I don't know why it's so
I
goddamn
think I
deep.
think I think water, but that's just my guess.
Water's pretty
So
wet.
water is indeed pretty wet. So you have a day with no obligations. What do you do?
With no obligations.
You have no obligations. The day is completely free. You don't have anything that you need to get done. You don't have anything on the horizon that you kind of need to prep for. You just there's 24 hours. You got nothing going. You know,
Yeah,
it,
well, it depends on where I am, but ideally, I just go and like I get a workout in and then I go rock climbing. But if I'm not in a place where I can do that, maybe I get a workout in and I hang out at home and play some video games with my friends and family or watch some TV or something. And I probably eat some really banging food too.
sounds like a very feasible day that's well worth living. So, what do you wish you had started sooner that you currently do?
I wish that I do wish that I had started climbing sooner, actually. And that's the thing, like this is the about passion, right? That's the passion that I want to talk about. But I didn't actually start rock climbing until I was in college, and that's like when I discovered it as as a pursuit, and I loved and love it so much. Like if I had started sooner, I feel like I'd be so much better. Not that I'm bad. I'm a slightly above average climber, I would say. I'm not great, but I'm slightly above average, and there's some things in climbing that I'm particularly good at, or that I consider myself to be particularly good at. I don't know if there's an objective standard for these particular things. But if I started younger, I think I'd be much more capable.
All right. So, on the flip side, what do you wish you had ended sooner?
I don't know if I have something that I. Yeah, I don't really have something that I wish I had ended sooner, to be honest with you. I can't think of anything.
Wow. It's a podcast first.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Mm. If you could go back in time and tell yourself one sentence, what would it be, and when would you tell yourself said sentence?
Um, so when I turned 16 and I got my first job, I started having a little bit of spending money. I'd go back in time and tell myself buy Bitcoin.
Boo!
What do you mean, boo? Remember how you
Boo!
asked me if one of my dreams would be, and I said to be independently
Boo!
wealthy? I'd be fucking done. I'd be done. I'd be done in a half.
Boo!
I could be
Boo!
fucking Bitcoin Buffett right now.
Boo! Radley.
Boo earns?
Use this time machine to make himself wealthy.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, what would you do? I'm sure you'd do the same thing.
No. I would tell myself to make more mistakes, try out more things, and become comfortable with not getting it right the first time and failing.
Gotcha.
Boom. That's a sentence to tell your younger self.
So is buy Bitcoin. The fact that you said boo makes me think that someone else on the podcast also said buy Bitcoin.
Nobody has said that yet.
Well, there you
You're the
go.
first financial money grubber.
Well,
And we have somebody who's like one of his big things that he's currently attempting in life is to retire early. So take that to the bank.
well, no, I'd be taking the Bitcoin to the bank if I could.
All right. Before we throw it to the first commercial break, if you could make sure listeners of this podcast heard one song, which song would it be?
So I'm a huge fan of an artist called Tosh Sultana. She's super good. If you haven't heard her, check her out. I think she's really rad.
Is there any one of her songs in particular that
Yep.
really
So
pops?
I would listen to Notions by Tosh Sultana. It's called Notions. Or you can also just look her up on, she does a Tiny Desk concert with NPR, and she does like a 3-song set. Notions is in the set, but the NPR Tiny Desk concert is super good.
All right, that's Tosh Sultana with Notions. Highly recommend checking that out. All right, now we're going to throw it to break, and we'll see you on the flip side. Or if you don't want to listen to a commercial, feel free to check out Tosh Sultana and Notions. And then come on back. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba. Superman. Have you ever just looked at fried carbs on a plate and thought, I need to eat those, but it doesn't taste all that appetizing? Introducing catsup. Catsup is a sugary and red syrupy paste that'll overshadow any unappreciated taste. Simply douse the unpreferred tasting object and ingest. Mmm. Thanks, catsup. And we're back. Thanks for returning from our regularly scheduled commercial break and or listening to Tosh Sultana's Notions and returning to us. So, Coco, what is your passion?
So I mentioned it already, but I am super. I actually mentioned it to my wife, and she rolled her eyes because she's like, "Of course you're going to talk about it." I'm super passionate about rock climbing in general, but rock climbing in particular.
So, what is it about rock climbing in particular that really gets you going?
So I mean, for people who have never tried it, I can understand that it looks like a crazy extreme sport, especially with like the movie that came out about Alex Honnold climbing El Capitan without a rope. Like it just looks insane because that kind of is
You're talking
insane.
about the free solo, right?
Yeah, that's the movie. It's a really good movie. He's a phenomenal athlete, a phenomenal human being, to be honest.
And a freaking crazy person.
Yeah. But climbing is kind of all of it for me. It's a very strong physical challenge that requires you to be fit, requires you to be flexible, requires you to have strength, and in the style of climbing that I do in particular as well, it requires a lot of endurance. And those are the physical demands. But then on top of that, it has technique demands. Climbing is very gymnastic. It's not like, I mean, not that there's really a sport that isn't technically demanding, but like not all sports are made equal. If you're a runner, there's absolutely technique to running well, but there's a certain point where it's just your fitness. In climbing, like, you can be the fittest climber in the world, but if you don't got the technique, you're not getting through this thing that you're trying to climb. Like, you have to be gymnastically, technically proficient. And then it's a mental challenge on top of that. You have both the mental challenge of managing your equipment, managing your rope, making sure that you're using it properly so that you're safe, in addition to the mental challenge like created by the situations that you find yourself in, that sometimes you might be in a bit of a hair-raising situation, or sometimes you might be in a precarious position where, like, we have a saying that there are certain places where the leader shall not fall. Like, the person, like, if you fall, you're in a no-fall zone. If you fall, things could go bad for you. You could get injured, or potentially worse, right? And so sometimes you might find
So can you
yourself
give
in
me?
that situation. So just this combination of everything, it's like an all-encompassing thing for me. I'm
All
sorry.
right, so can you no. Can you kind of describe for the listeners and myself what a no fall zone kind of scenario would look like? Because it kind of sounds like I think I understand what you mean, but that's such a bizarre situation where
Sure.
like, oh, you can't fall here. But to myself and other listeners, I feel like every situation seems like you shouldn't be falling. Like, what makes those situations so different?
Sure. So the style of climbing I particularly do is called traditional climbing. Climbers call it trad climbing. We just shorten the traditional to trad. And the way trad climbing works is you have equipment. You have little basically metal widgets made of aluminum usually, like spring-loaded camming devices, or little like chalk stones that are like, little squares that are made of aluminum that you can slot into cracks. And you
Okay.
attach you attach your rope to these things, and these things you put them in a crack in such a way that they don't fall out, that they catch your fall. And they're very strong. They're rated to hold, thousands of pounds of force. This equipment is very strong. It's not precarious. So if there's a
Mm-hmm.
crack and you're climbing and you put a piece of equipment in the crack and the rock is good, like the rock isn't crumbly or something, and you put this thing in the crack and you put the rope and you keep climbing, if you fall, it's going to hold you. Like, it's fine. So let's say I'm climbing this crack and I get to a ledge. And then I keep climbing up above the ledge and the crack disappears and the crack starts again after 20 more feet. So for that 20 feet, if I fall, I'm hitting the ledge. For the first 5 feet, I'm fine. Like, if you fell 5 feet onto a ledge, like, have you ever jumped 5 feet down off of a ladder or something? Like, it's not the worst, but you get 10 feet up, you get 15 feet up and you're not at that crack yet, 20 feet up and you're not at that crack yet. If you fall and you hit that ledge, you're breaking an ankle, right? So that's a no fall zone. Like,
Okay.
sometimes just the situation that you're in, you don't have an opportunity to protect yourself, and until you get to another opportunity where you can protect yourself, don't fall.
It's just that easy, folks. Just don't fall. In situations like that, where you're in that don't fall, like no fall zone, would you say that you are like scared or excited?
I'm focused. Um, so
Would you say your heartbeat is going fast or slow?
um, so
Obviously, you're like not checking, so this is, kind of
yeah,
guesstimating, if you will. But
for me personally, I think everybody deals with it differently, and
oh,
also
of course.
I do a pretty good job managing fear. People that have climbed with me know that we call it a head game. I do a pretty good
Mm-hmm.
job with my head game. But when I personally find myself in one of those situations, what I do is I usually actually look down, which people say don't look down sometimes, but like, I look down and I look up and I tell myself, okay, like, I literally tell myself in my head, don't fall. And then I stop thinking about my protection and I don't think about the fall. I don't think about the rope. the only thing I'm thinking about is the climb itself. Like, I tell myself, don't fall, and then I narrowly focus on the task at hand, which is the climb. Because there's no reason for me to waste mental energy worrying about the protection if it's not there. Like, don't
Yeah.
like why spend my energy wishing I had a cam to place if there's not a place to put it. So just, 100% focus in the moment, perform, and then on the back end you can protect yourself, and then do whatever you need to relieve the nerves if you had them, which for me usually is just like going, cheering or whooping or something and calling out to my partner like, that was spicy.
So, as somebody, I mean, you mentioned it earlier, as somebody who's been in the military and you've seen some action, would you say that the way your mind kind of calibrates and adjusts to that situation in climbing, is that similar to the way your brain kind of enters situations of combat or hostility or anything like that when in our country's service?
I think no two things are equal, but I think there's parallels. It's
Okay.
actually really funny. There's a book called On the New Alpinism. I believe it's called On the New Alpinism by a guy named Mark Twight, who's a very well well accomplished climber, very accomplished climber. I phrased that weird. Um, and it's really funny because the first part of the book, he's talking about the mindset that he has as an alpine climber. He's talking about things like friction and the struggle and like dealing with uncertainty and all these kinds of things. And it reads like the first chapter of MCDP 1, that's Marine Corps Doctrinal Publication 1, Warfighting, which is a foundational publication for the Marine Corps to basically talk about like the way we view warfighting. And
Mm.
they're talking about the same things in the same way. It's kind of a trip. So yeah, I mean, this idea of like focusing on the task at hand, there's like that cliched saying of like, was it like, give me the ability to accept what I cannot change.
Yeah, give me the ability to accept what I can't change and like the knowledge, or I think it's like, give me the wisdom to know the difference between what I can change and what I can't change, and like the acceptance of what I can't and the fortitude to accomplish what I can, or something to that
Yeah,
effect.
yeah, something like that, right? Yeah, it's a cliched phrase that neither of us know. But
Well, it's a cliched phrase, and I believe a biblical passage, but the 6 of 1.
oh,
Yeah.
well, I didn't even know that part about it. But at any rate, there's a little bit of that in it, that like you can't you can't wish yourself out of the situation that you put yourself in or that you found yourself in, depending on the
Mm-hmm.
context. But what you can do is you have a sphere of control. And this doesn't just apply to climbing in the military. This applies to probably anything in life. Like,
Yeah.
if you're struggling with something, you know, identify what your sphere of control is. What can I actually do? And what can't I do? And like, try not to waste your mental energy getting frustrated about the things that you can't do, and instead apply all of your focus to what you can do, because you're capable of a lot. And if you were able to focus what you're capable of narrowly, you'd be pretty impressed with yourself at how much you're able to accomplish. So
Totally. That is hitting me right where I live. That's woof. All right. Now that things are getting too heavy, let's switch over to the more hilarious. What is your pesky peeve?
what I thought it was preposterous, pesky.
Preposterous, pesky.
So fucking swamps. All right.
Go on.
So like, I'm sorry, but swamps are fucking bullshit. Okay, there's there's so much great terrain out there. Like, think about it. Like, you've got like nice forests, evergreen forests, deciduous forests, doesn't matter, but like nice forests with like loamy soil underfoot and like, critters roaming through. You've got like beautiful mountains, and you have lakes, and you have like plains and deserts, and there's all these like great things. And then you have fucking swamps. And like, fuck, man, like, it's so dumb. Like, so they're fucking like they're muggy and they're dark, right? So like you go in, you've got like the mangroves and all the trees growing really low or whatever, and it's all in that like swamp water and it's all murky and brown and gross. You can't actually walk through a swamp. So even if you wanted to enjoy one, like put on your fucking waders, you're going to get soaked. And then like you go in there and like the water is gross. Like if you were dying of thirst and you went to a swamp, all you do is die faster from cholera. Like that shit is disgusting. Not to mention if you go in there, you're probably going to get eaten by a gator or something anyway. So forget dying of thirst, you're just going to get eaten alive by whatever's living in that goddamn water. And you can't see it. Like it sneaks up on you. And like then there's all the fucking bugs and the mosquitoes and shit. Like swamps are literally worthless. Like you can't build on them. The foundations aren't solid. So what do? Us enterprising smart Americans? We built everything on a fucking swamp. Washington D.C. is built on a swamp. Fucking I think New York was built on, like all of these cities are built on swamps. Like these dumbass settlers were like, okay, we want to make a colony here. There's a swamp. Let's do it there. At least there's water. No, you just got fucking cholera and you figured it was because people didn't believe in God enough or something. Like, I don't know. Like, dude, swamps are so dumb. Swamps are so dumb. I hate swamps. I hate them. They smell. Like, have you been to a swamp? They fucking smell.
No, I haven't been to a swamp.
Yeah, don't bother. It's not worth it. And like, there's probably people that live in swamps that are listening to this, and they're like, "This guy's a fucking dick." But like, bro, if you could choose between living in a swamp or living in the Alps or something, like you'd live in the Alps. Don't fucking kid yourself. Like, sure, there's fun things to do in the swamp, but that's not because the swamp is fun. That's because people are fun. Like, people find a way to do fun things, even if they're living in a bullshit swamp. So, yeah, dude, like. Fucking hell. Yeah, like fucking.
So you're telling me that if the best mountain to climb was surrounded by a swamp, you wouldn't climb the mountain?
If it was literally the best mountain, I might put up with it. But like, this is kind of like, you got to suffer to achieve greatness, right? But like if it was mediocre, I'd probably take a hard pass. Like no. If it was literally the best climb, like okay, we can talk.
What's your like Moby Dick of mountains to climb? What is your white whale?
My white whale. I do have a long-term climbing goal. So again, I said like I wouldn't consider myself to be. There are phenomenal climbers, and I'm nowhere close to the caliber of some of these people. Like. I wish climbing could be my day job, but it's not. But I pursue it with some measure of gusto. So my long-term goal is there's a route in Yosemite, which most people have heard of Yosemite, but if you haven't, it's a national park in California that is known for a lot of things. It's very beautiful.
Basically the eighth wonder of the world.
Yeah. But it's also it's like a mecca for rock climbing, like especially American rock climbing. Modern American rock climbing developed in a couple of areas, but like the main cultural and technical focal point for American rock climbing as a pursuit was centered around Yosemite. It was the center of the universe. And so there's actually a documentary about it called Valley Uprising, if you're curious about it. It's extremely well made. It's very funny. And it's got a lot of good information in it if you were at all interested about climbing history or culture. Anyways, there's a route there up the a feature called the Washington Column, and it's called Astroman. And Astroman, it's like so it used to be a route that people only climbed aid climbing, which is a style of climbing where you use equipment to aid your ascent, where you bring like ladders and you put something in a crack that maybe is too impossible for you to climb, but you can manage to get a hook into it or something, and then you put the ladder on the hook. It's very delicate maybe, and then you stand on your ladder to get to the next place where you can put another hook and another ladder, and you like seesaw, or not seesaw, but like alternate your ladders back and forth or whatever. Where typically when you think of climbing now, we do what's called free climbing, where you don't do that. You only use your hands and feet to climb something. You still have a rope for protection, which is different than free soloing, which is that movie Free Solo that Alex Honnold did, where you're just climbing without a rope. Anyways, I digress a little bit. So
Just a little bit.
this route Astroman is kind of like a test piece, is the phrase that we use. It's a climb that, you know, challenges you at a very high level among a wide variety of disciplines, wide variety of styles of climbing. You have to be good at all of these different varying techniques. In other words, you can't be a one-hit wonder. You have to have a full quiver to be able to tackle this beast. And then it's like it's unrelenting, and it's long, you know. And so it's like a long day of sustained, difficult, technically challenging climbing with a lot of different styles. And so, like, my aspiration is to someday be able to climb that.
All right. So if Astroman was surrounded by a swamp, would you still do it?
Yes.
What if all of Astroman was a swamp?
Well, if Astroman was a swamp, it wouldn't be Astroman anymore. So now,
Yeah, like,
now
what if
you're
it
just
was?
well. Then I wouldn't. I wouldn't climb it. All right. Now you're
You'd
just
swim it.
now. Yeah. Now you're like, would you marry? You know, would you marry person XYZ? What if you loved her so much? Yes. What if she was literally Satan himself? Well, then she wouldn't be her anymore. And yeah, I know I just said swamp. I just compared swamps to literally Satan himself, and maybe it's not that far off.
Your version of hell is just a is just a bubbling swamp.
Yeah, just a really hot, fucking
Also,
sulfur-filled
for the
swamp.
record, I think you just did the best mixed metaphor ever of having a full quiver to tackle that beast. It's just the best thing I've ever heard.
Oh, you like that?
Well, I mean, yeah, like think about it. Like a full quiver means arrows, and then you tackle something because you have a bunch of arrows. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
it totally tracks, but at the same time, it makes no. It's one of those things that, when broken down, makes no sense. But
Yeah, I imagine,
like aesthetically, metaphorically, it works.
if
Just like, if you don't, it's one of those things you just don't think about it, and it's just completely fine. Anyway, speaking about don't thinking about it and it being completely fine, we're gonna throw it to our second ad break, and then we're gonna be back for the lightning round. So stick around.
Ba-da-ba-da-da-ba.
Meow. Have you ever wanted to kill a small woodland creature or break a window but not had the physical strength? I know I have. Now introducing Rock. Rock comes in a variation of sizes and ready to use. Simply put Rock in your hand, raise it back to ear level, and release. See? You've got it! This ad does not condone the violence against small woodland creatures or windows, nor will it be held liable for any inability of use when coming into contact with paper. All right, thanks for sticking around, sports fans. Coco, are you ready for the lightning round?
I hope so. Like, let's do it.
All right, no blinking. Answers quickly as the thought comes into your brain. Do you ever cheat on a test in school?
Yes?
Lions, tigers, or bears?
Bears.
Favorite dollar menu item?
McChicken.
Caffeine or alcohol?
Alcohol.
Are hot dogs sandwiches?
Fuck no.
Would you rather step on a Lego shoeless, or a cow pie in new shoes late for a date?
A Lego shoeless. That's rough, dude.
Bow tie or suspenders?
Suspenders. 100%.
First rated R movie you saw?
The Exorcist. It was horrifying. I was like 8.
Biggest celebrity crush?
Right now, Shakira.
Is there a god?
Yes.
Are we alone in the universe?
No.
Pineapple on pizza or fist fight?
Pineapple on pizza.
What or how much was the most expensive meal you've ever had?
Fuck, I don't know. Sushi. Someone bought it for me, and it was like $150.
If you had the power to see the future but couldn't change anything, would you use it?
I don't know.
Red or blue?
Blue.
For $500,000, how long would you give up your passion?
For $500,000, I could give it up for maybe a year.
What yes or no lightning round question would you like to ask me and have added to future lightning round questions?
Shakira's voice on Danny DeVito's body or Danny DeVito's voice on Shakira's body?
Shakira's voice on Danny DeVito's body for sure. The other one's a letdown. The other one is just comic gold. Oh man. Now all I want to do is like spend way too much time making that thing exist.
Like super cutting a Shakira music video
Yeah.
with Danny DeVito's
Yeah.
voice.
Yeah. Well, no. Super cutting Danny DeVito, like and like try to like sync up her singing. Do like one of those like do kind of like a mashup or mash cut or whatever like that. So it looks like he's singing one of her songs. That would just be, oh man, that's it. That's gonna happen.
I'm excited for
All
it.
right.
Have
Yeah.
it be an addendum to the podcast, like in the notes.
I don't know if I'm gonna get around to it that quickly, but I might try. All right. Thanks to Captain Coco for playing along and coming into the podcast. Anything you want to plug or recommend, places people can find you, or any content you're putting out?
No, I'm not really a social media guy. I'm just a guy. I mean, I'm on Instagram as Colton Oviat, so I guess you could follow me on Instagram, but I don't. I post like maybe once a month, so it's not like you're gonna get a whole lot out of me.
But you don't need a lot to enjoy it. Also, don't you have a YouTube channel?
I do have a YouTube channel. I don't make very many videos, but I occasionally try to make mashups of me rock climbing, although I'm not particularly talented in the visual arts. And
But you are talented in the rock climbing department.
at least a little bit. And my YouTube channel is also Colton Oviat. That's easy. I just use my name.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for listening at home or wherever you found the time to appreciate this. And remember, hate is for those who don't have the courage to care. So be daring. See you next time.